Well, 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 well. Manchester City 0, Tottenham Hotspur 2. And we made, as I've written in the title, Manchester City look absolutely bang average. That was the performance we put in against PSG in the Super Cup final times 5 against a team who spent hundreds of millions of pounds, against a squad who are deemed to be one of the favourites for the Premier League, and we put them to the sword. And I was tempted to say it during my watch long, but I never want to jinx it. But it's like, if I was a neutral watching that game, a non-Spurs fan, I would be like, there's only one team winning this, because we let them play in areas where we were happy to let them play. We played most of the game like, sure, if you want to put one in from 30 yards, put one in from 30 yards, but otherwise we're going to make it incredibly difficult. And also, and listen, I understand Ange Postecoglou will be tearing his hair out because how many injuries did he have? But as I said all last season, I think Postecoglou, to some degree, his style of play and his style of training was a reason why some of those injuries happened. And now, with Frank's detailed style and tactics, I think we're going to get less injuries. And what I'm getting round to is that back 5 we have, and I'll add Kev Danso onto that as well for a back 6 for when he wants to play 3 at the back. When they are trained and coached to play in the way like Thomas Frank is doing it, there are not many back 5s better in world football, are there? And I'll give some credit to Vicario here as well, who his long kicking is not great, but his short distribution is getting better and better and better. It's like Frank is finding ways to allow Vicario to always have space to pass the ball out easily, either to Van de Ven or to Romero on the right, or then into Bentancur or Paulinho to drop in deep. They've just done the interviews with TNT Sports with Brennan Johnson and Paulinho, and I'll go into my individual player ratings later on, but Paulinho, oh my God, he is an animal. We have to keep him fit. He is an absolute animal. Like, I've been talking ever since we were linked with him. Yeah, like he loves a slide-in tackle and maybe he goes down too easily, but actually I think the way that he attacks slide-in tackles really scares the opposition. City players didn't want to get in 50-50s with him. And as Godfrey Drummond says here in the comments, top of the league. And let's just enjoy it. We've had a fucking shite week. People pulling taking a piss out of us left, right, and center. And I said it before this game. I said it in my videos yesterday. I said it this morning in the pre-match. Thomas Frank should be pinning all of the piss taking and all of the abuse we got on the wall and say to those players, and get Romero in on it as well, and say, everyone thinks we're a joke. We're going to show them. And they fucking showed today. We are no joke. And that squad, like, I know we need a couple of extra players, right? But that squad, to a man, when fit, the first 11 to 14 players, very, very difficult to face. And while we have no injuries, if we can keep them wrapped in cotton wool, like Liverpool had no injuries last season at all. Please, dear God, please someone, Tottenham, give me something I like. Because if Tottenham were to get basically no injuries this season, they are going to be unbelievably difficult to beat. Unbelievably difficult to beat. So many times today. Mickey van der Ven, last-ditch tackle, sliding. Christian Romero making the right decisions all the time. Ploughing into tackles and beating Erling Haaland to the ball. Making Erling Haaland look bang average. I'm sorry to use the term bang average again, but it's like, this is Tottenham, 17th place in the league last season. And for anyone who wants to say, yeah, but, under Ange, we beat them 4-0. No, mate. Like, yes, that literally happened. But that performance there that we saw today, sustainable. I'm afraid the Ange Postecoglou way of playing, not sustainable. We do not get played through with one pass down the middle of the team anymore. We do not. Opposition coaches and managers do not anymore do analysis of our performances and go, well, it's pretty easy to open you up and this is how. Now, Pep Guardiola will have gone into that game today being like, oh, they'll definitely play 3 centre-backs like they did against PSG because they know we'll have all the ball. No, he didn't. He played 4 at the back. He surprised Pep and he had enough in midfield to block it off and make them look poor. They made Manchester City look poor. It took us a little while at the beginning to get into the game. I said before the game, I said, if you can not concede early, don't concede first 5, 10, 15 minutes, then play your way into the game. That's exactly what happened in both halves. In both halves, City came out, a lot of possession, popping it around, trying to, tease us out. But as we kept the clean sheet, as we went further in each half, you could see the belief rise in the players. And, I'm quite determined at this point not to get into individuals, but Mohamed Kudus, oh my God. West Ham lost 2 games out of 2, conceded God knows how many goals, and some of their fans saying that they've sold us a dud, Mohamed Kudus. Oh my God, he is a ridiculous player. And his ability to hold the ball up, and in today's example for the first goal, flick the ball on to Richarlison, then brings Brennan Johnson into play. Johnson actually played really well today, not just the goal, but he was playing, in my opinion, in more of an inside forward role rather than completely wide left. And so he's more involved in the game. But when he had to do what he does best, which is like shoot at pace past his right back to get on the end of that Richarlison cross, absolutely elite. That cross from Richarlison was at best 5 out of 10 cross just behind him. So Johnson has to put on the brakes when he's run at full pace, put on the brakes, and then sweep the ball round past Trafford. Absolutely elite. And I think it's time, and I've already seen some comments on Johnson, Eje Aranhe. Look, I appreciate you writing your comment, saying disagree on Johnson. He's lazy. He's not lazy, mate. He's not lazy. He's doing what he's told to do. And when you have a player who is so elite at something as Brennan Johnson, then of course Thomas Frank is going to say to him, you, as Ange did, just get yourself into that position at the back post. That finish is so difficult. Let's not allow ourselves as a fan base to get into a position where we're like, oh yeah, scoring is easy. Scoring is the hardest thing you can do in football. It is the hardest thing, putting the ball in the back of the net. All the strikers say it. All the managers say it. So Brennan Johnson needs to be lauded. He needs to be lauded, but it's Mohamed Kudus and his ability down the right. The combinations between Porro and Kudus. Kudus being there is making Porro look about 10 times better, not only attacking-wise, which we know he's brilliant at anyway, but defensively as well. Porro was unbelievable defensively today. They had to bring on Jeremy Doku in the second half to try and front him up, and he won that battle as well. Jed Spence as well against Oscar Bob. Honestly, he made Oscar Bob look like a youth player. He really did. Oscar Bob had so much possession wide right all game, and Jed Spence was just like, yeah, come on, mate. And every time Oscar Bob was like, oh no, had to go backwards. And we made City do that all day. They had lots of possession, but always had to be sideways and backwards. And where did we see that before? The PSG game. It was exactly the same. So anyone who comes to us after the PSG game and says, oh, you Spursy did it up by losing in the last few minutes against a team who had no training. Well, Man City have not only had a full pre-season, hardly any injuries, but they've spent £1 billion in the last 10 months. And we made them look utter shite. Utter shite. And that right-hand side, like I said, really excites me because now Porro has an outball down the line where whenever he gives it down the line, not only, will he flick it on like he did that led to the goal for Johnson, but he shows for it and he holds players off. He's got like quite a big rump, Kudus, and they can't get around him, and he just puts his studs on the ball, holds them off, and then he'll either lay it back or roll them and come centrally. And that opens up the space for Brennan Johnson on the other side. I'm so excited about Kudus. I actually don't know how many of these players I can bang on about where I'm like, if we can keep them fit. Richarlison, I haven't mentioned. He put in 70 odd minutes of absolutely brilliant number 9 play up front. He was outstanding. And again, he brought him off just after 70 minutes, Thomas Frank. He did exactly the right thing because it's in those kind of red zone fatigue areas where he might pull another muscle or something like that. And he didn't. And then Solanke came on, and Solanke was brilliant as well. Very unlucky not to score. And now we've got ourselves in a position where if we can keep these players fit, we have 2 unbelievable rotational options in the number 9. Just watching some of the players now as they show, the Spurs players are absolutely ecstatic. Thomas Frank, clearly such an incredible communicator, giving Lucas Bergwall a huge hug. Bergwall only came on for like the last 5-8 minutes, but he put in so many big headers, so many challenges. He gave away a foul, but that was because he was so into it. And all of these guys have been brilliant. And something else I talked about on the watch along, I'll talk again now, which really impresses me about Thomas Frank. Spurs, I think, presumably because they were leading, were asked to give someone for the halftime interview. And Thomas Frank didn't want to throw any of his players under the bus. So he did it. Thomas Frank did it. I saw it last week with the Arsenal game, and Erdegaard did it as he's captain, right? But he knows, Thomas Frank, I guess, that Romero doesn't love talking in front of the camera. So he's like, I'll do it. Thomas Frank is astounding me. And I'll put my hands up. I was a bit nervous about Thomas Frank as the choice. And I talked about it in my video, so it's not anything to hide. But I having seen him play against us last season, both times, they played incredibly direct. And I was like, oh, is it only going to be a direct style? But it's not like that, is it? It's you play it short in your own back third. And then if you can play it through the lines, if there's an opportunity or on the transition, then you do it along the floor. But if you can turn their back four, if you can turn their fullbacks, put it in behind and take advantage of pacey players like Kudus and Johnson, and whoever we might get in, if we do bring in a left winger, then you turn them and then they have to clear it, or they have to try, in City's case or PSG's case, they'll try and pop it around their own box, and then you press them hard. And then Richarlison and Johnson and Kudus, you press them hard. And that's exactly where the second goal came from. Palhinha and Bentancur and Kudus and Johnson and Rishi pressing Trafford hard, pressing the defenders hard. They make a mistake and it comes out to Palhinha. Brilliant player, puts it home. That's not playing like long, boring, direct ball. That's playing smart football. That is playing smart football. Whereas with Ange Postecoglou, when you listen to some of the podcasters that I love the most, Marcus Buckland, the host of the Tottenham Way podcast, he used to have kittens about how often Spurs would play the ball in their 18-yard box. But he won't be now, because even though we do that, if there's nothing on and we're being pressed too hard, you get rid of it and you try and fight for the second ball. Football is all about second balls. But with Ange, and I love Ange, and he's a legend, of course he is, and he will always be welcome at the club. And his mentality has enabled us, I think, to start this season like this, as well as Thomas Frank's stylistic tweaks. But under Ange, they were told, no, it's only this way. You have to do it this way. And if you concede a goal from it, fine. But actually, the Premier League is about scoring that first goal. The stats on if you score the first goal in the Premier League on how many people win, how many teams win the game are huge. So play like that. Play to take advantage of opportunities if people are making mistakes at the back. Don't give away mistakes. There were maybe 2 occasions in the whole game. One where Jed Spence, I think, tried to be a little bit confident. And one other, I think, in our own box where maybe we were a little bit like Angie and trying to take it, just be a little bit overconfident. But apart from that, it was so smart. It was so smart. Pat Matasar was given man of the match by Ali McCoy. Again, I'd say about Pat Matasar today, a performance so good that almost sometimes you didn't even realize it. He was just so all over the pitch, pressing, challenging, winning headers, and then still the engine on him, making runs into the box. Absolutely terrific. And Pat Matasar finally seems to have the manager who is fully believing in him, fully believing in his ability to get back and forth, use his engine. I've been saying for years, he has all the talent and the potential to be a Patrick Vieira for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And if he carries on like this and stays fit, and Thomas Frank keeps putting his arm around his shoulder and showing him how to improve, I think as his confidence rises as well, his technical ability, almost like on the easier things, which sometimes he struggles with, almost like the easier little 5-yard balls and the little controls and stuff, that will come as his confidence rises. Jay, with a really good comment here, says, I didn't see Reinders. So I said this before the game, and it proved to be, right? Everyone banging on about Reinders last week, yeah? He had a great performance against Wolves. Totally, he did. He was brilliant. But I said before the game, I think this game will be a level up in terms of tempo. And this, to me, was the perfect example of the kind of game in the Premier League where foreign players come into the Premier League and they're like, oh, it took me 6 months to acclimatize because the pace is so much quicker. And it is so much quicker. And Reinders, like you said, Jay, nowhere to be seen today. Absolutely nowhere to be seen because he couldn't deal with the pace. He couldn't hack the quality and the popping it off and all of that stuff. And people need to start talking about Pat Matasar and even Rodrigo Bentancur and Palhinha in a similar way that they get excited about these new signings, because when they are coached and developed in a way to play in a style that suits them and suits who you're playing against, are there many other midfielders I'd want in there instead? Not really. Not really, I have to say. So that's how I feel. Listen, absolutely brilliant. I'll go through my 1 to 11 in terms of performances. Vicario made some important saves first half. His distribution was good. A few kind of long kicks out of play, but that's what you expect from him. I'm going to give him a 7.5. Pedro Porro, 9. Brilliant. Maybe his best performance in a Spurs shirt. That's how I feel about him. Jed Spence, 8.5. Absolutely brilliant. Had Oscar Bob in his pocket. They brought on Phil Foden, nothing. Romero and Van de Ven, I almost see them as exactly the same. 8.5 for both of them. Outstanding. Bentancur, 8.5. Polinia, 9. Pat Matassar, 9. Kudus, 9. Richarlison, 9. And Brennan Johnson, I'll give an 8. Fantastic result. Lucas Bergvall, I'll give a 7.5 for when he came on. Solanke, I'll give a 7.5 for when he came on. Danso didn't have long to get involved, but, he was there. And I just think I'm so happy. I'm so happy for Thomas Frank. I'm happy for the Spurs fans. It's been a horrible week. Everyone taking the piss. But then you go to City and you turn them over and you do a number on Pep Guardiola. I did a TikTok earlier this week on how Thomas Frank could go to the Etihad and put one over on Pep Guardiola. And he did it. And I don't think there are going to be many Spurs fans right now wondering whether Thomas Frank was the right decision. And let me tell you this as well. In case any of you are saying, oh, but Nuno won his first 3 games. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. Thomas Frank, as a personality, as a communicator, as a tactician with his coaches, with Justin Cochran and Matty Wells, we have so much going for us this season. And once again, of course, pressure is on Daniel Levy. Can you back this manager? Can you give him a couple of players to actually make us a real force, a real challenger for that top 4? Let's see what happens in these first 10 days. But for any players who Spurs are going in for at the moment, Paz, any of those guys, Savinho, they'll look at that performance today and be like, oh, wouldn't mind a piece of that. Wouldn't mind a piece of that. So let's see what happens. Guys, really enjoyed doing the watch along for you over on Big Up. Enjoyed this post-match live show. Enjoy your weekends, guys. Fantastic result. Come on, you Spurs.